we're going to talk about the John George case. So let me just change over the picture. God bless Rachel, and I hope all her family, her friends, anyone who loved her, I hope they found some peace in that sentencing at least. So now we're going to go on and talk about this case. John George. Now, John George was 37 years old. He's from Northern Ireland. He came to Spain on holiday to the Orihuela Costa, and he apparently booked a flight to go home, though people are saying it wasn't him who booked the flight to go home. But he just never got on that flight, and he disappeared, didn't he? Disappeared again, people do, but of course they don't. They're always somewhere. He disappeared into thin air. His family were frantic. Then there were things said, they seemed to get wind of the fact somebody had said that he had been killed. Now, John George, he wasn't I don't think anyway, he was like a big gangster or anything like that. But, when he was young, he'd got into trouble, he'd become an addict, and he'd got involved in a lot of things he shouldn't have got involved in. He wasn't an angel, he wasn't a saint. His family were the first to admit that. But at the end of the day, John George was their brother, their son, he had two young boys as well, two children, a brother, a cousin, etc. So, he was all those things, and all those people loved him despite his faults. And yeah, maybe he wasn't an angel, but he had faults, as most people do, and some people's faults are worse than others. But nobody's saying that he lived a correct lifestyle. He didn't, but he did not deserve what happened to him, and certainly his family did not deserve what they had to go through to find their son's body. So I think they were basically told that he was deceased, and the family came over to Spain to search for his body. I think right from day one, they knew they were looking for a body. They didn't think they were going to find his dad, Billy George. I think he sort of tugged at all our heartstrings, didn't he? Because he was just wanted to find his son. I could get upset now. He just wanted to find his body so he could take him home and give him a proper burial. Anyway, worse than that, believe it or not, even was that they were led on a sort of given red herrings. They were led on a wild goose chase as to where his body actually was. They were searching miles away from actually where the body was. They got a team over from Northern Ireland to help them search, all in the wrong place. They were searching in the wrong place all the time. And they were searching around the sort of Orihuela Costa area, beach areas, etc. And when John's body was finally found by the Guardia Civil, which we're still not sure, did the Guardia Civil find him? Did one of the people that's involved in the whole case around it, did they tip off the Guardia Civil? I don't think it's completely clear. Or was he found, by the Guardia Civil? Guardia Civil won't tell you anything until the court case, which God knows when that'll be. We won't get anything out of the Guardia Civil. But anyway, he was found. And he was found in a private finca in Rojales, which is miles away from where the George family was searching for John. So they would never have found him. It's very sad that, even worse, isn't it? Not only, his life had been taken, and he'd been quite brutally murdered, and he'd been stripped, he'd been humiliated, he'd been stabbed, he'd been shot. It's horrible. And because of this how long, I think it was about a month before the body was found. You couldn't have an open coffin. That's an important thing, I think, in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. Anyway, they got him back. That's the main thing, I suppose. The main thing is he was not still lying out there like, he had been left lying out there like a piece of rubbish, and now at least he's been laid to rest in a dignified manner. And of course, the court case is, ongoing. So there were 2 people arrested, and one, of course, is Johnny Smith. He's in prison in Alicante as we speak. And the reason for that he's not been allowed bail is because he went immediately on the run, didn't he? And he was finally caught. He went off and married his girlfriend. Then he was finally caught in Portugal. So, because of that, I mean, he's innocent till proven guilty, as is everybody. But the fact that he did a runner once will have, doesn't bode well when the judge is deciding whether to give him any bail, is it? So he's been refused bail. So he is in prison in Alicante, but he's enjoying conjugal visits with his now wife. That's probably why they got married, so that he could have conjugal visits. And also because as his wife, she is not required to give testimony against him. But there's another character, isn't there? Michael Malley, he was arrested, but he has been released on bail. He's thought to be like a witness, but not to be the actual person who pulled the trigger. But again, wait till it gets to court. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Somebody killed John George. Somebody's got to pay for it, and we don't know what evidence the police have got. That will all come out at the trial, won't it? Now, in the meantime, there's this other guy who, well, I'm sort of loath to call him a witness, but he sort of is. He was called in by the Guardia Civil to make a statement. And here he is with Johnny Smith. This was apparently just pictures messing around, but there were other pictures of Dan where he had bruises and cuts on his face, etc. The thing is, he is an addict, and he was here in Spain. And if you watch my channel regularly, I have been worrying about him because, he was like a loose cannon. He was sort of wandering around, seemed like, he made that awful TikTok video where he was actually taking drugs live, and, he was sort of showing all these tablets that he had, and you were worried that he was actually going to do something to himself. He then, he was all over the Facebook pages here in Spain, in the area, breaking into various bars, etc. He's just like a lost soul, really, but getting into more and more trouble all the time. And I've said right from the beginning, I saw him once as I was driving over that way, and he could tell he was just completely out of it. The thing is, he needed help, but it was like, who's going to help him? Who's going to help him? And then it culminated with him being stabbed, actually stabbed in the neck, in not far away from where all this happened with John George. Some guy, an older guy, stabbed him in the neck, and he had to go to hospital because he nearly died. This is the dangerous life he was living. Anyway, he's then apparently, and I don't know if the Spanish authorities helped him. I mean, his problem as well is he doesn't speak Spanish. So there is help for drug addicts in Spain. There are places you can go. There are rehabs. There are all those things. But if you don't speak Spanish, you can't. And I don't know if he was even in Spain legally. Is he a resident, or you're not, you can't just come willy-nilly to Spain nowadays, not after Brexit. So, I don't know what his residency situation was, or what the Spanish authorities could or couldn't do for him. But anyway, apparently, according to this news item, and this is what I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad, to be honest, because, he's another guy who, like John, probably went the wrong way in life. But you know what? He's still quite a young guy. You wouldn't like to think of him dying in the, just being, because he was stabbed in the neck and just left to bleed to death in the street. You wouldn't like to think of that happening to anyone, would you? At the end of the day, and he apparently knows something about this case, so it's going to be important to the case. Apparently he was called into the courts to make a statement, but he was too out of it. He got thrown out in the end. They said he just couldn't make the statement because he was just not compos mentis. And I wouldn't like to think of anyone just lying bleeding in the street and just left to lie bleeding in the street. Anyway, he was taken to hospital and he survived. And now, apparently, he's in prison, according to the Sunday World, this is. I know some people say it's a bit of a rag or whatever, but anyway, top witness in John George murder trial, jailed after near fatal knife attack. I mean, he says he's now behind bars in Magaberry prison. I don't know anything about prisons in Northern Ireland, so is he safer there, or maybe he's not? I don't know. Maybe he's not safe there. That's possible as well, isn't it? Because, not necessarily safe in prison. Sorry, I'm just putting a few windows down so that I don't get confused with what I'm showing next. More windows than Buckingham Palace, as they say. Ooh, I don't want to put that one down. I just want to turn it down. Right, I'm nearly there. Yeah, so now behind bars. I mean, it was an accident waiting to happen. Look, Johnny's always smiling like this every photo that you see of him. So Dan, he had a lot of bruises. Now, did Johnny do that to him? I don't know. And they said they were just messing about, but I don't know. Anyway, a Belfast man named as a top witness in the murder of John George in Spain has sensationally returned home and is currently in jail, we can reveal. Dan McMeekin, who was viciously stabbed in June in the Costa Blanca, returned quietly back into the country in the first few days of July, just days after he got out of hospital in Spain where he was recovering from an attempt on his life. The 29-year-old is now behind bars in Magaberry prison after he handed himself over to the authorities and admitted a couple of outstanding theft charges and possession of drugs dating back to September 2023. He's got to be better off in prison, hasn't he? I mean, he was here in Spain. I don't know where he was living, but he was robbing places. He was caught on CCTV. It was over all the Facebook pages. He could see as clear as day it was him. So it wasn't going to end well for him here in Spain, was it? So, it's good that he's gone back, I think, personally. But anyway, let me know what you think. What do you think? Do you think he's done the right thing to go back and sort of, at least hopefully be being looked after there? At least he's got roof over his head. I don't know how that's going to work with the drug thing. Is he going to be given rehabilitation, or is he more likely to carry on taking drugs in prison? I don't know. I don't know what the prisons are like. So anyway, McMeekin knew John George well and was in a bar in Spain where it's claimed a plan was hatched to attack the Belfast man who was later found murdered. John George, a father of two, was shot and his body left in a rural area in the Alicante region around December the 14th, but it wasn't discovered for several weeks. So yeah, his family spent Christmas and New Year looking for his body in the wrong place, searching through, God knows what. But they had no chance of ever finding him. He wasn't anywhere near where they were searching. Anyway, supporters of John George and his family believe that Dan McMeekin has information relevant to the investigation. However, he has never been arrested or charged with anything. In January, Belfast lawyers acting for the family of John George named him as being one of two men who was due to appear in court in Spain, not as suspects but to tell the court what they knew about the lead up to the murder. It's not clear what McMeekin's return home means for the murder investigation, or whether he will be required to return to Spain to give evidence in the event of a murder trial. Czech national Michael Malley was arrested earlier this year and appeared in court as a murder suspect but was released on bail and has yet to be charged with any offence. Because in Spain they charge you when it comes to the actual trial. But he was given bail because he must have cooperated with them to get bail. Johnny Smith didn't get bail because he'd already gone on the run once. Meantime, Newton Abbey man Johnny Smith, 27, was arrested in Portugal, having gone on the run before being extradited to Spain, where he has also been named as a suspect and held on remand in prison. He has not yet been charged with any offence. They won't get charged until the actual court case. After the attempt on McMeekin's life, speculation was rife that he may have been attacked by the criminal gang behind the murder of John George, and the attack may have been a warning to him not to give evidence. Well, that's it. So was John George's murder a result of, of organised crime, or was it some sort of personal dispute? We don't know, do we, really yet? Not really. So Spanish police told the media that McMeekin knew his attacker but refused to name him. But I think he was arrested, wasn't he, in the end? Let's have a look. But he'll be out on bail, I would imagine. I'm sure his attacker eventually was. Yeah. Can't find it. Yeah, someone was arrested. Somebody was arrested. A 58-year-old Irishman was arrested on June the 30th. And this man that was arrested for the attack on Dan has previous convictions for homicide and drug dealing. So apparently, poor Dan, he was, caught short, taking a leak, and that's when he was crept up on and stabbed in the neck with a box cutter blade. Ay, ay, ay. So apparently he was found in a local park on June the 30th. So I don't know where he is now. Has he been released on bail? So he's got a criminal record in Ireland for homicide with a firearm and drug trafficking. So, oh no, they released him. So he was brought before Orwella Court of Instruction number 3, ordered his provisional release with a restraining order against the victim. What do they mean, released? I don't know. How can people that have murdered someone be just wandering around? In Spain, they all come to Spain. Oh, yeah, it says here, on June the 30th, a 58-year-old Irishman who Spanish cops claimed had convictions for homicide and drug dealing was arrested by the civil guard for the attempted murder of McMeekin and was brought before a Spanish court. And sources say McMeekin was in a terrible state and came home to try and sort his life out. Well, I think it's now or never for Dan, don't you? Literally, Dan, if you want to literally do what really, genuinely want to sort your life out, you're running out of time to do it. So you need to do it now, don't you? Dan came home from Spain after the stabbing, which obviously really scared him, said a source. When he left for Spain last year, he was facing a couple of court cases. And so he knew if he came back to Belfast, he'd have to deal with that first. And that's what a lot of people do, you see, that they escape whatever cases, whatever things are going on, where they are, whether it's Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, and they flee to Spain, because they don't want to face the music. But, if you're still getting into trouble and things, you're probably better off facing the music in a country that you can understand what people are saying to you, for God's sake. Because Dan, anyway, he's gone, and I'm glad he's gone, for him, as well as, it's good, the less criminals in Spain, the better. Dan's not a bad fella. He's a really sad case. I must admit, I felt that bit with Dan when I was watching it. I did feel sympathy for him, because you can see that, he's not exactly happy, is he? And you've seen the videos he made after the murder of John George, where he's clearly feeling terrible about what happened. The pressure in Spain was getting too much, between almost being murdered and also the Spanish police were after him for a spate of break-ins where he was caught on CCTV several times. Believe me, in that area in Orihuela Costa, everyone knows about Dan McMeekin. He wanted to come back and try and get his life back on track, as he's still a young man. Yeah, he's still got time, exactly. So he came home quietly at the start of July, and he stayed with family in Lisbon. Didn't leave the house pretty much for a couple of weeks. He then handed himself into the police a couple of weeks later, and he was remanded into custody until he appeared in court to plead guilty to some shoplifting charges. So here's Johnny Smith with John George, of course. Now that's it. Dan doesn't want to end up like John, does he? He doesn't want to end up, in a lemon grove, like shot and stabbed and just left to rot there. John is always smiling, isn't he? He's always got a big smile on his face. He's in Magaberry, but he'll be out soon, and hopefully he can get the help he needs to get off the drugs that ruined his life. I hope so. People do turn their lives around. There are people that do come off drugs. It's hard, isn't it? Once, obviously the answer is try not to go on them in the first place, but it's easier said than done, isn't it? Sometimes it's the environment that you grow up in. But for the grace of God, if we, it could be me, it could be you, it could be our children, our grandchildren. They grow up in environments, they get into bad, in with bad friends, etc. Or they start off just thinking, it's all right, just take, one sort of drug, and then it leads to others. Same with alcohol. You say, just have a drink, it's fine, but you don't. Some people, they just go down that road, don't they? So he was subsequently transferred to court following his arrest and was remanded in prison. And on the 30th of July, he was sentenced to 2 months imprisonment. So do you know what? Really, when you think about it, so he fled, went to Spain, got involved in all that, went through all that, was stabbed in the neck and nearly died. And he could have just gone and done his 2 months imprisonment, for God's sake. So according to court documents, he appeared at Lagenside Magistrates Court in Belfast, where he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of theft and a 3rd charge of being in possession of a Class C drug. On September the 19th, 2023, he stole a bottle of Dior perfume to the value of £135, belonging to Boots, Donegal Place, Belfast. And on the same day, he stole a Fred Perry hoodie to the value of £100, belonging to JD Sports in Castle Place, Belfast. Well, you know, it's not. Not that I'm saying that the shoplifting is good. Of course it isn't. But, you know, it's not like murder, is it? You know? He was jailed for 2 months in total for the 2 theft charges, but he was further convicted of unlawfully being in possession of a Class C drug, pregabalin, on the same day as the shoplifting spree. Yeah, there's Johnny Smith again. Miss McMeekin, who is known to be extremely vulnerable due to substance abuse issues, became a target of social media trolls and amateur investigators. Yeah, he got involved with one amateur investigator, let's say, who then totally threw him under a bus, but they do that to everyone they ever get connected with. After the murder of John George, he was identified as being someone who had crucial information about what happened to the Belfast man who went missing in December, and he had previously admitted online he should have contacted the family of John George before he was murdered. Well, of course he should. If he knew he was going to be murdered, he should have. And 2 weeks after John George's body was found, Belfast legal firm KRW Law said on January 31st, "We can confirm that summonses have issued for the attendance of 2 persons to answer inquiries in relation to the murder of Mr. George. We've been in touch with the authorities in connection with this latest development. We understand each person was originally due to appear at the preliminary court sitting in Torrevieja." Now, of course, he went, didn't he? And yeah, they're talking about Michael Malley and Dan McMeekin. He went, but he was too out of it. He couldn't, they wouldn't take his statement because he was too far out of it. And then he posted that video, didn't he, where he was actually taking drugs on stream. He was responding to wild speculation on social media and named one TikToker who he felt was not telling the truth about him. That's a surprise. And what he knew or didn't know about John George. Slurring his words, he says, "I'm doing my best to help in so many ways. I am guilty of not telling the family sooner. I am vulnerable. This is breaking me. I have a heart. I do." We watched that video, didn't we? I thought it was very plaintive, to be honest. You know, I'm not making excuses for him. He's done, you know, it's bad what he's done, but I hope he can turn his life around. Because, you know, it's the same with John George or anyone who gets involved in, you know, goes down that bad way. Do you know what I mean? You've got to, if they're trying to make turn their life around, you've got to give them support and hope that they can do it. So he also had domestic abuse offences. So, you know, yeah, he's not been a very nice person, has he? But, well, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. So, yeah, what he can do. Pictures appearing to show him inside business premises late at night in Spain were shared widely. I've seen them there. Or there's nobody now, I'd say, in that area in Orihuela Costa, certainly. Maybe in other areas that doesn't know about Dan now and these videos. And he was identified by his tattoo on his hand, which was visible. Okay, so I just want, because we've been covering the John George case, I just wanted to give you that update. Yeah, more will come out, of course, when the actual trial starts. Hi, Angel. Whenever that is. I mean, we're at Spain. I don't know when that trial will be. Literally, it could. Nothing's going to happen in August, that's for sure. So I don't know when the actual trial is going to be. We haven't had a date yet, as far as I know, anyway. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you about that. So, whoever did kill John George, and I don't think anybody thinks it was Dan who actually killed him, but could Dan have prevented it happening? That's the thing. So he is, he's an important witness. He's got information about the case, and I hope he does the right thing and goes forward. Gets himself sorted out and goes forward, and helps resolve this case.